and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you definitely should not. And we are back with another episode of the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. But this episode is obviously quite exciting because it's in continuation of the latest updates that have been announced by IRCC, which are in relation to the category-based draws, which is big news, right? It's really big. And I'm excited, thrilled, and at the same time, nervous as to what the future holds for us. Bill C-19 is what I'm referring to. Bill C-19 was tabled in the Parliament last year in the month of April, I think, May, I don't remember now. But it was finally approved. It basically went through all the motions. It was accepted in the Parliament, and then it received the royal assent on the 23rd of June last year. And from there on, there was a speculation, when is it going to be implemented? Was it going to be implemented last year? Then the news came it will be early this year. And then the news came that later this year. And now finally, IRCC has announced that the categories, the categories that will be implemented, rather, which will be created in order to create the changes or attract newer applicants or the people who will be selected within the express entry draws. And this is why it becomes very interesting, which basically means within the express entry pool itself, several categories will be made. Mind you, the program doesn't change. First of all, a lot of people confuse express entry with a program. Express entry is not a program. Anybody who tells you express entry program mein file ke lagayenge, wo galat bol raha hai. There is no such thing as an express entry program. Express entry is a file management system, just like your CRM. Tons of CRM you have, right? So express entry is just a file management system. Within that file management system, you have three different programs: Federal Skilled Worker, Canadian Experience Class, and Federal Skilled Trade categories. Only three programs. PNP is not a program in Express Entry. PNP is a category in the Express Entry, whereby people who receive nominations get 600 points, but they still have to be Federal Skilled Worker or Canadian Experience Class. And this is how it is, understood, and that's how people are drawn. However, the biggest change that IRCC has made now a few days back, that they've announced that they have created additional categories within the express entry pool. So everybody who's eligible, who's interested, creates their profile and everybody enters the pool. Now you are inside the pool. Everybody has a ranking. Everybody has a ranking based on their comprehensive ranking system score, CRS score, right? So first you need to be eligible to get into the pool. Once you are in the pool, then you have a rank, because, hey, 250,000 people, everybody cannot be same, right? So everybody has a rank. Based on the rank, you then get drawn out. Once they conduct the draws, for example, they invite 100 people. The top 100 scoring profiles will get invited. At this point of time, nobody was being specified. They were not saying that I want only Federal Skilled Worker, I want only Canadian Experience Class, I want only PNPs, I want only Federal Skilled Trade categories. By and large, it was either all program draws. In some cases, sometimes they would say only people who have PNP nominations is 600 points, we will draw only those out. In COVID, we saw that they were also saying only people who are Canadian Experience Class, we will only draw those out. And then there was this one freaky draw when they invited people only who were Federal Skilled Worker, which was in the month of February this year. Now they have made categories, and they have said, okay, we have a healthcare category, we have agriculture and agri category, we have STEM occupations category, we have transport category, we have categories of people who speak French, who are francophones. With all these categories now within the express entry pool, first of all, you have to be eligible to get into the express entry pool. Once you're in the express entry pool, you are within one of the programs, Federal Skilled Worker program, Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Trade category. Then you are in a category. And in those categories itself, the NOC codes have been identified. The NOC codes have been issued, have been informed people. If you are in one of those NOC codes, then you are in huge lot of luck, because then as and when the draws will be conducted from within those categories, you will have a great opportunity of being invited. This and lots more is what we're going to talk about today in today's episode. So let's get cracking. Quote of the week this time. Love my quotes of the week. I'm not sure if you agree with me or with the quotes of the week or not, but I love it because they are sometimes, in most cases, so inspiring. Actually, I pick and choose the ones which are more relevant. In today's episode, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to continually fear that you will make one. You're always looking over your shoulder. Maybe I'll make a mistake. Maybe I'll make a mistake. And in the fear of making a mistake, you actually do not live, you do not do things that you would otherwise have done. For example, very, very simple, people who are wanting to create content on social media. Hey, I am not a business coach, I'm not a social media expert, but I'm just going to give you my 2 bits on this one because of the quote. They are so scared that people will judge them. How am I looking? How my hair looking? How my skin looking? Is the lighting all right? Is the video all right? Is the audio all right? Will I make a mistake? Will I say something bad? Will I be able to pronounce some things properly or not? What will people think about me? What will people judge about me? In that fear, they don't even make that content. They don't even make that video. Maybe they can be the next superstar. Maybe they can be a person who will hit it really, really big. Same fear. Maybe I will not get invited. Maybe PNP will not invite me. Maybe I will not get through the whole program. Maybe my age is too much. Maybe I'm not able to score in IELTS. Maybe I cannot get my education. Therefore, I will not create my Express Entry profile. Therefore, you are losing out on so much of opportunity. For example, you could get invited by Alberta. You could create your profile on Saskatchewan and get invited by Saskatchewan. Your NOC code could be in demand and you could get invited by Ontario. And based on that, you are losing out on opportunity just with the fear that maybe, maybe not. So don't get stuck with the fear. Move ahead, get that done, get whatever needs to be done, get it done. And you will see that if nothing else, even if success doesn't come there, at least you would have learned something. And learning something is always, always, always better than not doing something just because because you have the fear and you're scared about it. That is my 2 bits. Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date on Canadian immigration news and trends with us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Follow us, please, everywhere. I just, it's good for my ego. I like to see the numbers go up. So yeah, please follow us everywhere. Starting with the PNP draws, the province of British Columbia, on the 23rd of May, this was actually last week, invited 103 candidates to apply for the provincial nominee program through the 4 streams of BCPNP in Tech Draw. They also invited 42 additional candidates in the healthcare, childcare, and other priority occupations. At this point of time, I think provinces are now holding back. I'm not sure it will not happen. I'm sure it will happen. But provinces probably are going to sort of hold back a little bit until the draws start happening with Express Entry, because there is uncertainty, right? I mean, we know there is a category-based draw coming, but we do not know how it will get played out. So I have a feeling provinces are going to sort of take a little bit of a more cautious approach. They definitely have more information than we have. Because they would have got some understanding from IRCC as to how this is going to go and when IRCC will start. But I still feel that there's a bit of a cautious approach from provinces, and they may not want to conduct a lot of draws, because by them conducting a draw, they have to give 60 days to people. And if IRCC is going to conduct a similar draw or same draw, then they are just losing out on their invitations, and it is just a futile effort, right? So that's the reason why I think there might be a bit of a cautious approach. Anyways, Manitoba conducted a draw on the 25th of May, invited 29 candidates under the MPNP eligibility criteria for Ukrainians who were affected by the war. On 30th of May, this is where the British Columbia last week's draw is, they invited 151 candidates through 5 streams for the BCPNP. In the general draws, 45 were invited through the priority occupations in healthcare and childcare. Manitoba on the 1st of June invited 589 candidates through the 3 different streams. Certain occupations were targeted under one of the streams. Of all the invitations, only 214 candidates had an Express Entry profile. It basically means out of 589, only 214 would actually get the 600 points in Express Entry profile and then get their nomination and then apply through the Express Entry. The remaining will have to apply through the non-Express Entry permanent resident route. In other news, this is where it gets exciting. On 31st of May, Canada's Immigration Minister Sean Fraser has announced the launch of the category-based selection draws for the Express Entry candidates. And you know what? Let's jump to the other presentation. Yeah. Canada launches the category-based draws. The category-based selections will allow Canada to issue invitations to apply to prospective permanent residents with specific skills, trainings, or language ability. Categories that have been chosen for 2023, first category, French language proficiency. You need to score 7 in all 4 factors, at least. That's the minimum requirement. In healthcare occupations, you have quite a lot of NOC codes. Actually, almost 82 or 83 NOC codes in total have been identified in these several categories. Then you have the STEM occupations, science, technology, engineering, and math occupations, in which you have the IT, the account, the engineering, and I think certain other professions as well. Trade occupations, some carpenters, plumbers, and other trade occupations have been included. Transport occupations, airline pilots have been included. Transport truck drivers have been included. And then the agriculture and agri-food occupations. These are the 6 main categories that have been included for this year. The first category-based invitations to apply are expected to be sent this summer. Now, summer basically officially starts from the 21st of June and runs until the 23rd of September. We do not know when in summer the draws will start, but let's see. Wednesday, 21st of June is the beginning of summer and is also a draw date. So if that draw day you have the new category-based draws, well, then that will be a very exciting day to see how this whole thing plays out. Who will get invited? First of all, eligibility, NOC code, and then the CRS code. First of all, you have to be eligible. You have to be eligible to enter the express entry pool, as I was explaining to you earlier. If you're not even eligible, you forget about the category and forget about the category-based draws. They mean nothing at all. You have to be eligible. For federal skilled worker, you have to score 67 points. You have to have 1 year of continuous work experience, and you have to have the sufficient proof of funds. And of course, you have to have your IELTS, CLB 7 at least in all 4 factors. That is the minimum condition for you to be eligible under the Federal Skilled Worker Program. Canadian experience class, you could be CLB 5, you could be CLB 7, depending on your NOC code. Okay, certain NOC codes, if your category code is that, then you can also get away with CLB 5 with your English language. You do not need to have, as Canadian experience, you do not need to have continuous work experience. You can also have multiple NOC codes, multiple employers. That's also fine. But you still need to be eligible in Canadian experience class by having work experience of at least 1 year in more than 1 occupations, also acceptable within the last 3 years. That is the criteria. And then, of course, your CRS score is extremely, extremely important. Your CRS score has to be up there so that whenever they conduct the draws and the CRS cutoff is announced, then you are eligible to get through. And in this case, NOC code also becomes very, very important. Out of those 82, 83 NOC codes that have been identified, your NOC code should be one of those primary NOC codes. Now, the thing which is bonking a lot of people, is bothering a lot of people, is confusing a lot of people, is the criteria of 6 months of work experience. Now, what IRCC has done is, within those categories, they have said, if you have 6 months of work experience in that NOC code, in that work experience for that category that has been announced, then you would be eligible for the category-based draws. This is making people think that in express entry, you will be eligible with only 6 months of work experience. That is not true. Please understand this. First, you have to be eligible in express entry. So you have to comply with all the conditions and requirements of express entry. Then you have to be able to come into the category. Okay. So for example, let's say you have 3 years of work experience. Okay. So you have 3 years of work experience. You have a master's degree. You have CLB 10. Your score is 481. Voila. Within those 3 years, you have at least 1 year of continuous work experience. Therefore, you're a federal skilled worker. The other 2 years, you have been working with 2 or 3 different employers, of which in one employment, you have 6 months of work experience, which is in the category that you're looking for. Now, you could be eligible, but you will not be eligible. And the reason for that is you cannot choose this NOC code as your primary NOC code because it's only 6 months of work experience. This then tells you this 6 months of continuous work experience requirement is mainly for Canadian experience class candidates. It will give them advantage, not the federal skilled worker. For federal skilled worker, you will still need to have 1 year of work experience. If you do not have 1 year of work experience, you cannot choose that NOC code as your primary NOC code. If you cannot choose that as your primary NOC code, you will therefore not get invited under the category-based draws. If you want to be selected in the category-based draws, if you have the work experience, you have to choose that NOC code as your primary NOC code. If you don't choose it as your primary NOC code, then the system is not going to identify you as the person who is eligible, who qualifies under that category, and hence you may not get invited. Therefore, this becomes of even bigger and more critical importance for people who are inside Canada, who are Canadian experience class. For you guys, this is a jackpot. You can choose the NOC code under the category-based NOC code if you have work experience in that NOC code for at least 6 months. Because hey, 1 year of continuous work experience does not apply to you. So therefore, if you have 6 months of work experience within the last 3 years in Canada, you're a Canadian experience class, that becomes your primary NOC code, and off you go. This is the eligibility criteria. Will regular express entry draws continue? What will be the impact on EE draws? Well, yes, in my opinion, express entry draws will continue. I have showed, I've been tweeting about it. I've been posting on Facebook groups. I've been making this video. For more details on this particular video, we did this video 2 days back, so you can go through that again. We've done it in detail. But in my opinion, yes, the regular express entry draws will continue. The impact will be that the invitations are going to be distributed. There will be invitations for the regular express entry draws. There will be invitations for the category-based draws, because the category-based draw invitations are going to take away from the regular invitations. Therefore, the regular invitations numbers will reduce. When the numbers will reduce, you know the math, the CRS scores are going to be higher or will remain high. How high, what will be the draw, what will be the number, how many ITAs, all of that is out there in the unknown, which we will only come to know once IRCC starts. Okay. What is the, again, a lot of people asking, what is the difference between the PNP draws and the express entry draws? Well, once these changes are implemented, then we will come to know what is the difference. But what, in my opinion, in the meantime, the advantage that you have is, for example, and I'll give you the example of Ontario, right? Ontario has been conducting human capital priorities draw. As of right now, they have been conducting draws for tech draws, okay, some 10 occupations there, and healthcare draws, some about 25, 30 occupations there. For healthcare draws, the CRS score in the last draw went down right till 427 for Ontario. That tells you that there are not too many people within the healthcare industries or within the healthcare occupations in the express entry pool, because hey, only with about 2,800 invitations, the score went down to 427. This is great news for people in the healthcare occupations, by the way, because if you are a person who has at least 6 months of work experience, you are eligible in federal skilled worker or Canadian experience class, you create your express entry profile, make that as your NOC code, and you will have an opportunity to get picked up by express entry directly, not even through Ontario, if you get invited. So this one is a good one. So what the difference is going to be, what the impact it's going to make is, with Ontario especially, either Ontario will change the NOC codes, because hey, if express entry is going to call the same NOC codes that Ontario is calling, then Ontario has no advantage anymore. Why will somebody spend $1,500 to Ontario, wait for 3 to 4 months extra, and then have to come back to express entry and submit the application when they can get an invitation directly from express entry? So it doesn't make sense, right? Therefore, in my opinion, Ontario is probably going to change the NOC codes, which is great news for everybody else. The accounting professions, the management professions, the sales professions, the other non-category occupations that who haven't received, whose NOC codes are not in the category. Well, you guys can then now hopefully look forward, hope and pray that Ontario now brings back the general occupation draw that they used to have, the general priority occupation, where they included several other NOC codes which were not healthcare NOC codes, right? They used to call the accountants, they used to call the HR professionals, they used to call the management professionals, they used to call the advertising professionals. Hopefully, they will go back to doing those draws again, because express entry might not give those guys an opportunity. That is one thing that will happen. Second thing which will happen, or rather may happen, is that the scores for Ontario PNP will even go further down. Okay, so for example, express entry chooses to invite 2 categories: STEM occupations, in which there are IT NOC codes, and healthcare, in which all the doctors, dentists, veterinarians are included. And let's say the cutoff is at 430 for these guys. Then Ontario will say, okay, I'm going to call people from 429 and below. And they might invite people in the range of, like, say, 400, 401 to 429. And now there is an opportunity for these guys to get invited. Okay. So in both situations, in both instances, it's a great opportunity. It's a great option for everybody. So people who are in the category-based draws, you definitely have an advantage. For people who are not in the category-based draws, certainly you will start finding advantage from provinces like Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, because all of these 3 provinces were earlier inviting people from the express entry pool, all similar NOC codes. Now, these people don't have to depend on these provinces. Even Saskatchewan, in the recent past, the last draw was at 67 points. they were inviting, say, similar NOC codes in IT, in tech, right? Now they can move away and start inviting other NOC codes, because these individuals in IT, etc., would have a possibility of getting through the regular express entry. So this is something which is going to be very exciting. One question here: could express entry combine its category in a draw? For example, select French plus tech STEM. Yes, everything is possible. However, I do not see them combining a category over another category, because they've already identified these as separate categories. They would like to conduct draws within that category. Because of that, I do not see them overlapping. Yes, what they may do possibly is overlap a program with a category. So for example, they can say we are inviting people within the French category who have 1 year of work experience in Canada and therefore are CEC. That's what they can do. They can invite people from one of the STEM categories and say we are inviting only CEC program from STEM category, or we are inviting people who have Canadian education from the STEM category. That program overlap with a category is something which I actually anticipate and expect to see. But one category over another category, or category combined together, is not something which I'm thinking is going to happen. Again, my opinion, we'll all have to wait and watch how this proceeds. What else is there? So what happens to everyone whose NOC is not listed? Well, good luck. And when I'm saying good luck, I basically mean in sense of more PNPs will be looking at inviting other NOC codes, at least in my opinion. I think that is the more logical and sensible way to go. If Express Entry is going to invite all these NOC codes, then PNPs will have to realign, re-strategize their programs, because at the end of the day, the provinces also need people. They also need to bring in people in their own provinces who want to stay there, who want to live there, who want to help with the economy, and who want to sort of also help with the labor market shortages in those provinces. So in my opinion, it will be a win-win for both categories. People who are in categories, obviously through Express Entry; people who are not in the categories through other provinces, who will now give them advantage. Scores will come down. Keep in mind, at the end of the day, provinces do have a quota of 105,000 people for this year. That's a big number. So you can also look at that. Plus, regular Express Entry draws will continue. And because they will continue, in my opinion, they will continue. And because they will continue, therefore, people whose NOC codes are not in the categories will still have a chance to get through with that as well. Right, let's get back to the presentation that we were talking about. FAQ about the new category. When will the targeted draws start? Again, as I said, there is no date. It is anticipated within the summer days, summer months. So it can happen at any point of time after the 21st of June. I wouldn't think before that, sorry. The next draw in Express Entry is anticipated on the 7th of June. And after the 7th of June, the next draw anticipated would be 21st of June, which is also the start of summer. So I would think probably more within the range of, I would think more within the range of summers happening. Do I need to have an Express Entry profile to be selected in one of the eligible occupation? Yes, absolutely. These categories are within Express Entry. As I've been explaining, you have to first be eligible in Express Entry. And once you're eligible in Express Entry, you have to be obviously in one of the programs: Federal Skilled Worker, Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Trade category. And after that, you will have to be in one of those categories. Will the CRS no longer count for Express Entry? CRS is the way you are ranked in the Express Entry pool. So of course, it will count for Express Entry. CRS is the way people will get invited. The highest CRS score will always make a difference. So if you can improve your CRS score, that would be something that you should do. Are the criteria different for new categories? The criteria are not different. The only difference in the categories is that you should have at least 6 months of work experience in that NOC code. And that should then be your primary NOC code. That would be the way to go about it. Will there be Express Entry draws for PNP candidates? Yes, IRCC is already confirmed and mentioned that the Express Entry draws for PNP program specific would continue, and they would absolutely include the PNP programs as separate draws or as part of the draws. So that will continue. why are these new categories created? Why did they even make it? So that goes back to the Bill C-19. Canada's immigration minister has a mandate to support Canada's economic goals and to promote the growth of French-speaking communities outside of Quebec. That's the reason I have been saying for 1 year to take up French, to get on with French, take up French as a second language, take up, get onto the French program. And now it's here. And it's so clear that French was always, because it has been very clearly mandated. Sean Fraser was mandated with the fact that he has to bring in more Francophones. And the target for this year was 14% increase in the Francophone communities. So there you go. That's where it is coming from. Canadian work experience requirement has been removed for engineers in Ontario. Now, this is another news. What has happened is, in most cases, the regulatory bodies of engineers in Ontario would require the person to have Canadian work experience before they would issue the license. Now, what they have done is Ontario's Minister of Labour Immigration Training has announced that the requirement to have Canadian work experience in order to become eligible to get your licensing done has been removed, which basically is a great news, which basically means even if you have work experience outside Canada, you're eligible, you pass the exam, you would be able to apply for your license and get your license, and therefore start looking for jobs to practice as engineer, which is incredible, which is a good one. And I hope they also do these similar changes to the other occupations as well, which will also largely make a big difference. Now, if you are looking to go to Quebec, well, you should know that Quebec has proposed on making French mandatory for all the economic immigration programs. It is not yet mandatory. Right now, you could still get away without knowing French if you could score very well, score high in ARIMA for the Quebec Skilled Worker Program or the PEQ. You could still get through, but now they are saying that they want to make French mandatory for all economic immigration programs. So if you know French, maybe Quebec is a province for you. But if you don't know, well, then either you learn French or maybe choose a province other than Quebec. Whispers from IRCC. Now, at this point of time, there is a conference going on for CBA of CBA members in Ottawa. And this is an annual conference that happens for the lawyers. And a similar conference will happen for the consultants who are members of CAPIC. For us, the conclave or the conference starts next week on the 7th of June, from the 7th of June until the 10th of June. So I'm definitely there for sure. It's happening in Winnipeg because that's where we get to learn, we get to understand something else. We get to meet our peers and also, learn and understand what's happening in the field of immigration that we might not know. But what is happening right now is with the CBA conference, which is happening for the lawyers, we're hearing a lot of whispers. And the first one, and some of them are quite interesting, so I thought I'll share with you. There are apparently more than 500,000 people without status in Canada. So who are considered as people who have lost their status, are illegal, are working without status. So there has been also these ongoing rumors that IRCC is looking to bring out new programs, bring some sort of an amnesty for these 500,000 people. At this point of time, there is no program coming in. What they are saying is that IRCC is in the process of deep policy because there could be a lot of repercussions before they can announce any relief programs for these people. So unfortunately, these guys will still have to wait. But at the same point of time, if they were to bring out any program in hurry, that could also have far-reaching consequences, because then for other people who are coming to Canada through the normal, regular, genuine ways, well, that would be very discouraging, right? So if you can be here illegally and then get an amnesty, then that is not very encouraging. But at the same point of time, people who are here without status, they're here because of a reason. They've been abused, they have been victims, they have absolutely been at the brunt of the wrong side of things, and therefore they are without a status at this point of time. Regardless of that, IRCC is continuing some policy work, and until they have finalized that, there is nothing coming for them. Further, Sean Fraser has said that the updates will be coming soon for people who wish to study and work in Canada. Now, this got me very excited, but unfortunately, there was no further information. All he said was that there are updates coming for people who are looking to work and study in Canada. What those updates are? No, this is not a TR to PR program. Don't worry about that. Don't start getting too anxious about that. There is no new TR to PR coming. But Updates are coming for sure for people who are looking to study and work in Canada. Details are not available, so I can't give you anything more on than that. But just that something is on the horizon. These kind of announcements never make me happy. It's just that I would rather see some more details to understand what it is. But yeah, that's what it is. Current categories and the newly announced changes will remain consistent at least until the end of 2023 to offer consistency and certainty to applicants. Well, this is in reference to the new categories. A lot of people who are now looking at these category-based draws are wondering if these categories will change in the next 2 or 3 months. The categories are not expected to change at least until the end of this year. And the reason the categories will not change at least till the end of this year is primarily because that then offers some sort of certainty and consistency to the people who are planning to apply in these categories. Otherwise, if they will keep changing every 2-3 months, it doesn't give a lot of certainty to people. For example, if you are inside Canada and if you are targeting one of these categories, you can very quickly identify, find an employer, find a job, and change your category, get work experience in that category, and then be able to apply under that category. That would be a great one. For example, if you are still looking to be a transport truck driver, you've got a license, but you still haven't started. You're thinking, should I do an incorporation? Should I be a self-employed? Should I work for an employer? Well, this is your cue. Get onto an employment with a logistics company, with a truck company, and get your experience as a truck driver, as an employee, which will have you pay stubs, which will get you your CRA deductions and give you your salary. And then you will be eligible under this category-based draws. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. For example, if you are looking to become a software designer, software engineer, and your occupation number or software, your NOC code is now listed as in demand in the category-based draw. So and you've already completed your education, get your work experience of 6 months at least with a company which will say that you are a software engineer, software designer, and your NOC code is enlisted, and therefore you now become eligible with this. So therefore, in order to offer consistency, in order to offer certainty, the categories will remain same until the end of the year, which is, I think, pretty good, sensible decision. And the next phase of the category specific draws will target specific regions. That is also part of something which we have discussed earlier as to how Bill C-19 will look like. And the next phase of the categories, when they will be announced, which is probably going to be early next year, in those cases, you will see that they will be targeting specific regions of Canada. And I have a very good feeling region of Ontario, specifically Toronto and GTA, is not going to be one of them. Regions of British Columbia, Vancouver, and regions around them is not going to be one. So this could also be your cue to start moving out of these main cities, main urban cities, and going into other cities, spending time over there, getting your work experience over there, having your intention to reside in those specific areas, and you might see that you might get advantage in one of them. So these are the things, these are the whispers, which I thought I should share with you because, hey, from these whispers come the loud announcements at a later date. On Twitter, I posted this morning the numbers, something which you should be aware of because this directly impacts possibilities of what's happening in future. Did you know that in 2022, Canada has approved 551,405 new study permits? It's not the entire number of students. These are the new study permits. There were already more than 300,000 students who are continuing to study. Add to them this 551,000. That makes the total number of international students in Canada roughly 800,000. I don't have the exact number, but roughly 800,000 international students in Canada right now. More than 650,000 new work permits were issued in 2022. This is including the open work permits. So LMIA closed work permits, open work permits, postgraduate work permits, international mobility programs, ICT work permits, francophone work permits, all of these in combination. New 650,000 work permits were issued. Obviously, there were a lot of people who still had a work permit valid through 2022. So adding that, this number is more than 800 to 900,000 people with work permits in Canada. Last year, 437,180 new permanent residents were welcomed to Canada. So it's not that they came from outside Canada and came into Canada. They could have been inside Canada as well, but their status became as permanent residents. So this was the number there. Canada then also welcomed 223,000 new, or rather, citizens. So that was another number there. In total, can you imagine more than 3 million TRVs were issued. More than 3 million TRVs were issued in 2022. And the gross total of actual, so if you total up all these different application types, including the TRVs, more than 4.8 million visas were issued in 2022. That was the total number of applications that IRCC approved, processed. So you can imagine how many more were applied and how many were refused. So that was the number that IRCC looked at. And so if you were stuck in a backlog and you were wondering why my application is stuck and why nothing is happening, well, there were 5 million applications in total, more than that actually. So yeah, IRCC had a lot to do, I think, in 2022. So that was the numbers, something I thought you should be aware of. Connect with us on different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And if you're still here, hit on that like button, boop on the like button, so that we can, get this video out to more and more people. And of course, do subscribe to the channel, because hey, I do not know what you're waiting for. And of course, definitely please share the videos to more and more people. Right, let's get on with the questions, starting with the super chats. Nadeem Pathan says, I got invitation in Express Entry in Canadian Experience class. I added my spouse as dependent. Since I have dependents, do I need to show proof of funds? Is it $17,500? No, you don't need to show proof of funds, because you are Canadian Experience class. As long as you are a Canadian Experience class, you're eligible in Canadian Experience class, there is no requirement for you to show proof of funds. If there is a tab holder in your account which is asking for proof of funds, you will simply say that you are Canadian Experience class, and therefore you are not required to show proof of funds. You're exempt from proof of funds. That's all you need to do. You don't need to show any proof of funds. Ed Marco says, I have worked in the same position for 2 years with salary raises. Should the reference letter only include my current salary, or should it also mention my previous salaries in the same position? Well, good question. A lot of people get confused with that. Your reference letter it can mention different positions and different salaries, no problem with that. But technically, even if it mentions that your last drawn salary was this, then that's good enough. Make sure you also attach your pay stubs, your income tax documents. If you're in Canada, the notice of assessment. And you can also add your employment offer letter that shows at what salary you started. But it's not a problem. You can just show your last drawn salary. No question there. And Rob, thank you for the super chat, but unfortunately there is no question there as well. Okay, let's get on with other questions. If a province nominates me as early childhood educator and after I get PR, I change my job, will it be a problem going forward? Absolutely not. Once you become a permanent resident of Canada, then the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protect you. You are absolutely free to do whatever you wish to do. You can work in any employment, any kind of occupation, any kind of job. You can be self-employed. You can work for an employer. Heck, if you don't want to work, you don't have to work either. So it's not a problem at all. Okay, looking at the questions. Gaurav says, AOR 12th May, does IRCC verify documents at the eligibility stage or in the background check? Eligibility is passed, background check is in progress. Does it mean PPR is around the corner? Well, I don't have much faith, to be very honest, in all the information that you are seeing on the PR trackers and on the application dashboard itself. Even if it shows it is passed, does not mean it actually may have passed. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I do not have any faith in the whole system that you're looking at. But yes, your documentation gets assessed at the eligibility and assessment stage, but that does not mean at background checks they will not refer to anything to do with your employment. They can also refer back to that. So I would say, instead of putting too much of or getting too anxious about it, you just let the process happen. It will take time. Average processing is 6 months. I know at this point of time, the processing is happening much faster. My son, I applied for his Canadian experience. No, he's not Canadian. My son is inside Canada. I applied for his Federal Skilled Worker Program application. It got approved in 52 days flat. He was a Federal Skilled Worker. So, there was no Canadian experience class there, but it still got approved 52 days flat. So I know it's happening very fast. The applications are being done very, very fast right now. But that does not mean that the average standard processing time has changed. There are applications that take 52 days, sometimes 40 days. Sometimes we have seen applications getting processed in less than 30 days as well. But then there are other applications which can take more time. How does it, what defines how much time it will take? First of all, which processing office your application is being processed at? Within that processing office, who is the program assistant or program analyst for who this application has been assigned? Then after the program analyst or assistant has completed the application, who is the assessing officer to who that application will be assigned? Now, there are individual queues of processing. And if your own application, what have you presented? What have you provided? What documentations did you show? Was there anything which is not matching, not clashing? Was all the documentation complete? How did you provide it? How did you present it? Were you able to explain everything? Were there any gaps? Was there anything which was mismatching? All of this in combination, has a huge implication on how your application and how quickly it is assessed. Can we expect PNPs to shift focus? Yes, in my opinion, PNPs should realign the way they are processing the business, and we expect to see a lot of changes from PNPs as well. Any risk of creating an express entry profile with implied status? What to do when work permit extension is approved after ITA is submitted? Well, nothing to be done. You can most definitely create your express entry profile at any stage. Whether you are a student, you can create express entry profile. Whether you are a worker, you can create express entry profile. Whether you're an implied status, you can create express entry profile. Whether you're an open work permit or a spouse open work permit, your spouse is a student, a spouse is a worker, you are in an open work permit because of your spouse, even then you can create your express entry profile. You can apply for PR. There is no problem. Once your work permit extension is approved, you don't have to do anything. There is nothing to be done. If you have it already handy, add it as part of your application as a copy of that with your work experience documents or your passport, and that's absolutely fine. Nothing else to be done. Ahlan wa sahlan ya habibi, kifak. Okay. Any possibility if French language scores allotted in CRS calculation will be increased as it is one of the prime category? No, I don't expect the language scores to increase. I expect the scores to remain the same. There is no changes in the language scores. The changes will be that within the category, how many people who are francophones and what is their CRS scores and what CRS score do they invite and who gets invited. That is how it will be seen. They will not increase the scores for francophones. Will it be more beneficial to have multiple NOCs in tech or years of experience in a single one? Well, it doesn't matter as long as you have at least 1 year of work experience in one NOC code that makes you eligible for federal skilled worker. Then any year and additional years will also give you, it can be combined and give you the CRS scores. At most 3 years will top your CRS scores anyways. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. Shivam says about the 10-year no gap history in OINP HCP. Is it mandatory to show some proof for activities we mentioned like travel, leaves, internship, and where to upload the proof? No, you just need to mention the activities. Proof is not required unless they ask for it. Please explain the future of 35 to 4. I'm not sure what you are referring to here, but I can definitely not explain any future of anything here. If you're referring to the age of 35, well, the future of age of 35 is pretty bright. I think, well, I am at 52 now. So 35s is, I mean, yeah, they have a pretty good future, I would say. So many exciting things to look forward to. How many points CRS scores for category-based draws can plunge to? We don't know at all. There is no way to speculate. There is no precedence. There is no data. There is nothing to sort of take and say, okay, this is what has happened, because we don't even know exactly how the draws will be conducted. Will they conduct draws for all categories at the same time? Will they just pick specific categories? Will they pick specific NOC codes from specific categories? How many invitations they will issue? How frequently they will conduct the draws? There is so much of unknown, so much of uncertainty. There is absolutely no way to predict the score. If spouse is already a PR and one has to apply under FSW class, does one need to show proof of funds for 2 people? Good question. Yes. In BCPNP Tech program, do we need to first find jobs and then apply for CERS? Yes, because that is the only way you will become eligible. If someone has NOC in newly announced categories, CRS 472, do you think that person has any chance? I'm sure the person has a great chance. As I said just earlier, it only depends on how many people will get invited and when. Rob, thank you for the super chat. Medical exams form done during student visa application is 1 year. Can the same IMM be used for ITA when we are still inside Canada? Is IMM for student visa different for IMM for CITA? Okay, good question. A lot of people get confused. The medical exams that you have taken as a worker, as a student, as a visitor are all same. Even for permanent residents, there is no separate medical. It's called skilled worker exam. It is non-EDE. Non-ED stands for excessive demand exempt. Non-ED medicals are conducted only for people who are coming to Canada under economic programs. Okay, so if you have already taken your medicals within the last 5 years, could be for a student, could be for a visitor, could be for a worker, then you can use those medicals for your PR application if you are applying from inside Canada. Whether you're a federal skilled worker, whether you're a Canadian experience class, that doesn't matter. Any PR application that you're doing, okay, you can submit the same medicals if those medicals were completed within the last 5 years. That is the most important. And that you are inside. You have to physically be inside Canada. That is the other condition. We lost the question. Yeah, we lost the question. Sorry, just looking at where I was on the question list. Okay. Does anyone remember that in the mandate letter that was given to minister said he needs to create a new pathway for international students? When will that happen? Well, we don't know. And as far as creating a pathway, it was not only for international students, it was for international students and foreign workers. A minister has 4 years of term, and that mandate letter is not issued every year. It is issued for his entire term. As you can see, the Francophones are now being given the advantage that has been mentioned in the mandate letter. It is only now, very recently, have they finally adopted the family reunification and created the process whereby people who are applying for spousal sponsorship PR application, their spouses can now also get work permits. They even if they're out, once they come into Canada, and can get easy TRV, or the TRVs will be processed in 30 days. So these changes are happening. When will they come up with a program, or when will they come up with the process, or when will they come up for a pathway? So also the mandate letter did not say a new separate pathway. It said, and you have to remember, we always take these things in context. It said create new pathway inside express entry. This bill C-19 could very well be that pathway, because at this point of time, they can still come back and say that within express entry, people who are in those categories, if you have Canadian work experience, if you have Canadian education, then you are invited. So that would again become a new pathway for people who have Canadian work experience, Canadian education inside express entry, and that would still be as per the mandate letter. I am working as a software developer in Canada. My CRS score is 457. Will the CRS cutoff go? I do not know how low the cutoff scores will go. We'll have to keep our eyes. Guys, if you're going to be asking me questions of how low the CRS score will going to go, what is the CRS score, what are the chances, those questions I really can't answer. There is no way for me to give you any educated or a literate guess and tell you that this is how it is, because there is no precedence. There is no way to say which NOC codes will be picked up when. Okay, same questions. What are the chances? Our CRS score is this. So not answering those questions. Would a CBSA officer complain if I arrive with a study permit in Toronto while I am applying for a CSQ or a PR? Nope, absolutely not. It is not a problem. Even if you're coming to Canada on a study permit, you have a valid study permit, you're coming to Canada, there is no problem. Even if you have an ongoing PR application, CSQ, it's not an issue at all. I have a 19 months of experience as a web designer. However, my education is in marketing. Will this be an issue, as employment requirement in the NOC code says that I need a degree in computer science? This is a problem when you are applying for PNPs like Saskatchewan, where there is a very strict criteria that your work experience and your field of education should be same. But for express entry, this is not a problem at all. Express entry has never ever looked at your employment requirements or your education requirement to be matching. So that is not a problem. In express entry, it's not an issue. Does part-time work experience gained for 2 years, continuous years while studying count as half the time? Yes, it does if the studying and work experience was outside Canada. If it was inside Canada, then it will not count. Yeah, not answering these questions, which is asking for CRS score and chances, because honestly, I don't know. There is no way to give you any indication of what would be a possibility or not. If someone has a NOC in newly announced, do you think there's a person? I don't know. I need to have my PR processed ASAP to be accounted for domestic tuition fee. Any suggestion to fasten my PR processing? First, you get eligible, then you qualify, then you keep all your documents ready. Once you get invited, then you make the submission of your application, then hope and pray that it gets processed faster. That's the only way to do it. The PR is under process for family sponsorship. Can my husband apply for TRV now, or do we have to wait for the dedicated portal for TRV for families? There is no dedicated TRV portal for families. It's the same TRV. You don't have to wait for your AOR. You don't have to wait for something specific. When you are applying for TRV, in that you have to mention that you have applied for permanent residence. If you have the AOR, great. If you have the approval in principle or the first stage approval, great, attach the copy. But you can very clearly mention that you have dual intent, that you have applied for permanent residence, you want to come and live in Canada permanently, but in the meantime, you do not want to be away from your spouse, you want to be, living with your spouse, and under the recently announced family reunification process, you are applying for this visit visa or TRV. And in the same time, do provide documentation or evidence to show that you have ties to home country and that there would be reasons enough for you to return back should your PR application be refused. That is the only condition. Could EE drill down its categories, for instance, choosing specifically tech in STEM and some NOC codes within tech? It is possible, but we do not know. I mean, at this point of time, everything is only speculation until it's happening. The PR is under process for family sponsorship category for my husband. Can my husband apply for TRV now? Yes, can apply for TRV, no problem. I just explained how it can be done. I got an invitation from Ontario. I have submitted my application with Ontario on 31st May. My IELTS is expiring on 2nd September. If my profile gets selected after my IELTS expire, what are my options? You will still need to complete your IELTS again. Okay. Until you have submitted your application to IRCC, until you get your AOR, your IELTS needs to be valid. So if your IELTS are expiring, then you need to retake your IELTS. As I said, your IELTS needs to be valid on the day you submit your application to PR to IRCC. If it expires the next day, it doesn't matter, but on that day, it has to. So if your IELTS expires before you have submitted your PR application to IRCC, then you need to retake your IELTS. What is the chance? I don't know. Could it combine? Yes. Could it combine? I already answered that. Considering OINP is going down to 427 for healthcare draws, do you think they will be relevantly more lenient with their rules in relation to their work experience requirements? No, I don't think there is any reason for them to be lenient with their rules. Why should they be lenient with the rules? On the contrary, scores may go down. They may change the categories. They may change the NOC codes, but absolutely no reason for them to be lenient. First of all, I don't even know what rules are you referring to, because Ontario already has very lenient rules. So I'm not sure what exactly are you referring to otherwise than that. There are some mistakes in my employment history in the past temporary resident applications. How to correct it and explain it in the EAPR. First of all, I do not know what mistakes those are, so I can't really give you any suggestions here. Do you think regular CEC draws can resume? I am quite skeptical. I'll be very honest with you. I don't have much faith in them conducting a CEC specific draw. They may conduct a CEC program draw within the categories. That is something which I think is a possibility. Not only is a possibility, I think it's a definite possibility, because they have established 6 months work experience requirement for the categories. Only CEC candidates can comply with the 6 months category requirement. So I expect CEC specific draws, but probably within the categories. Notification of interest from Ontario, 2nd Feb submitted. Green stage, tick, sent emails. Should I worry? No, there is nothing to worry. Wait for them to come back. Business employees has no category. Said who exactly? First of all, I don't even know what you mean by business employees. Everybody who's an employee is an employee of a business. So they're all business employees. And when you say has no category, then you're absolutely wrong. For example, if I am an owner of a software company, my NOC code could very well be of a software engineer or a software designer, if that is the activity of my business. The NOC code of a business owner is not that this person can choose to be an accountant, this person is a business owner kind of a thing. The activity of, or rather my NOC code then becomes the NOC code of my business, which I am managing, owning, running. I cannot say I will be only marketing manager, but I am a owner of a software design company. So you have to choose your NOC code carefully and in a proper manner. Only then you will identify what your NOC code is. So be very careful with that. Has a chance, I don't know. Please explain after request letter in GC key. Well, after you get a request letter, it goes back to the program assistant, program analyst. They check the letter, they see if all the information is correct or not. They will then give their final recommendation to the visa officer. The visa officer will also review, check. If everything is good, then they will go to the next stage of your application. That's what will happen. Will CRS score criteria also change? I don't know what you mean. I do not know what CRS score criteria is. There is no criteria of CRS score. CRS score criteria is the same. I don't anticipate any changes within the express entry in terms of the CRS score points for different factors at this point of time. There has been a talk about it long back, and that is a possibility, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. It might take a bit of time. I have 19 months of experience. Will my we just discussed about this. The PR is under process for family sponsorship category. We have answered this. Common law proof as outlined FSW. Where can I find the details about the document requirement? On the express entry page, it mentions to follow 5589E checklist. Well, if you open the 5589E checklist, it does give you a bit of documentation that is applicable. For common law proof, it is the same. You need to establish two things. One, that you are cohabitating together. And second is the period of time since when you've been cohabitating. And third, of course, I forgot, is the economic interdependency. So period of time basically means you provide the lease agreements, which will show from since when you've been living together. You provide common proof of addresses, driving license, bank accounts, phone bills, utility bills. You provide chat histories, call histories, pictures together, pictures of traveling together. You provide common bank accounts or joint bank accounts. You show both of you paying for common bills, which shows economic interdependency. If you have a common vehicle, common mortgage, common, I don't know, anything which you have bought together, that all becomes proof of common law relationship. And of course, you have to also do the form. I think it's 5409. I don't remember the form number, but there's a common law union form that you will need to sign and get it notarized. Okay, what else is there? Please advise about the CRS score for STEM category. I don't know. There is no way of giving you any indication because, as I've said already, there is no precedence. There is no data. There is no historical information to say this is what it will happen. For that, we have to wait and see. It all depends on how many invitations they will issue and how they conduct the draw. Since 1,000 people enter the pool every 2 weeks with a 500 score plus score and another 1K with 490, can we assume that the baseline for normal draws will be around 500 to 490 depending on the side? We can, but if we are referring to the draws in connection with the category-based draws, then yes, that is a fair understanding and estimate. Have submitted documents at Saskatchewan, haven't received nomination. If I get ITA under the category draw, can I withdraw my application for Saskatchewan? Yes, you can. There is no problem with that. The processing time is 60 to 120 days after receiving ITA. How long will it take to get the PR and eventually land in Canada? Once you have submitted your PR application, the standard processing time is 6 months. Once your application is processed, once your application is approved, you will get a passport request. Once you get the passport request, you send your passport for visa stamping. Once you get it back, which can take 25 to 30 days, once you get it back, it will have a validity period, which will be usually 12 months from the date you have taken your medicals or the date your medicals were uploaded to the IRCC portal. 12 months from that would be the validity date of your visa. You can arrive into Canada any date before that. You will also have the validity date mentioned on your COPR. So you have to arrive in Canada before that. I worked for proprietor ownership firm, salary paid in cash, no return filed due to non-income. There is no internet presence of the firm. What documents should be provided to prove my work experience? I made several videos on this subject. I would suggest you go through those videos because I will not be able to do it in detail. But you still need to provide reference letter, employment letter. For proof of cash salary, you can provide pay slips, pay stubs, copy of the register where you would have signed to say you've received a salary, because any business owner will have at least some evidence to show that they have paid you, because tomorrow you can get the salary, come back and say I didn't get the salary. So most business owners will, even if it is the smallest grocery store out on the corner, kirane ki dukan, they will also manage some sort of an account. So you can get a copy of that. You can get a cash voucher or a payment voucher or a salary voucher. You can also get a salary certificate, cash salary certificate from the employer. As far as not having an internet presence is concerned, it just basically means there would be a longer duration of your background checks. There could be a longer duration of your assessment and checks of your employment, but it is still absolutely fine. Does part-time? We already answered that. How about the HR profession? We have been ignored for so long. I don't see how HR profession has been ignored. If you will say HR profession has been ignored, then what about another 300 occupations? They have also been ignored. I mean, who got the priority? Because Express Entry never had a priority for any specific occupation. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. But if you're referring to Ontario, then well, Ontario has not conducted a general priority occupation draw since last year. And maybe now they would go back to doing it. Okay, 457 chances, I don't know. Can you give some insight for lawyers who want to immigrate to Canada? Well, the best option would be Express Entry at this point of time. If you can get through the Express Entry process, if you can score high, add French as a second language, if you can get a job offer as a legal aid, legal assistant, legal law clerk, then that will also add additional points for your work experience. You can also come to Canada as an international student, or as I said, you can take up French as a second language. How to get job offer from a Canadian employer as a French-speaking candidate? Great question. As a French-speaking candidate under the International Mobility Program, under the Francophone International Mobility Program, you don't need an LMIA. All you need to do is find an employer who is willing to hire you, giving you a job, and then you convince that employer that they don't need an LMIA. They just need to give you a job offer, and they need to pay a $230 employer compliance fee on the employer portal on the IRCC website. Once they have done that, you have a fee receipt of $230. You then need to make an application for work permit explaining why you are eligible and why you're qualified to perform the job. You will have to show your French language exams, because that is the basic criteria. And that's it. I think you have a good option. You have a good opportunity to get to Canada with that work permit. Once you have worked in Canada for 1 year in that work permit, and if your employer is willing to extend you the job offer, then you can also claim points, 50 points for that job offer, depending on the position. Okay, last couple of questions before I scoot off. Plenty of questions still to go. My recommendation and suggestion, please post your questions in the comments after I have finished the recording, so then we can come back. Thank you so much, sir. Your lives are the best. Thank you for that comment. Appreciate it. What would be the best pathway for 40 plus individuals studied in Ontario but not following in targeted occupation? Would A, B, PNP or similar? Well, best thing to do would be, first of all, wait for the next draw or the next category based draw. If you can find employment in any of the categories that have been identified for 6 months, then you would then become eligible in that. Add French as a second language, or find an employer who can offer you support for PNP. For example, if you're in Ontario, you could be looking at the RNIP, Rural Northern Immigration Program. Or if you're in North Ontario and if you're eligible under the Ontario PNP program, then you can look at that. If you're going to a different province, if you're going to Alberta, I don't suggest Alberta, because Alberta doesn't have too many options for people who are not living in that province. You could look at Manitoba, you can look at Atlantic provinces, but regardless of which province you look at, of course, even Saskatchewan, regardless of which province you look at, you will need an employer who's going to support your application. So the sooner you find that, the better it is. But in the meantime, if you can find the occupation that could match with your background, plus is also now listed in the category demand, then having a 6 months work experience in that category would make you eligible in that category. And depending on your CRS scores, you may have a good opportunity to get through with that one. OINP HCP application. My bachelor's university is closed and I have done ECA for my master's and got master's equivalency, but I still need to submit bachelor's documentation. Will it cause any issues? No, not at all. If you have an ECA for master's, you're good to go. There is no problem with that. Okay. I was hired as a part-time worker, but working 40 hours per week. Will I be considered as full-time in IRCC? Yes, you would be, because the requirement is, regardless of whether, let us say, is part-time, full-time, if you have worked 30 hours or more per week, then you will be considered as full-time. There is no problem with that. All right, the questions continue and I would love to answer them, but to be very honest, I need to get a move on. I have my appointments starting in 5 to 10 minutes and I need to get on with those. Thank you so much for joining in. It is, as usual, lovely to come back here and share whatever I know about Canadian immigration with you. Do follow us on Instagram. Love to see those numbers going up as well. Of course, on Twitter, we are tweeting a lot of things day in, day out. And I will be in Winnipeg next week. And I will be tweeting live about every new information that I learn or get informed with about what's happening with Canadian immigration and things you shouldn't do. So it would be good if you can subscribe or rather follow on Twitter as well. So more information coming there. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I want to see those numbers going up as well. Sometimes I just don't understand why YouTube numbers are just not going up, but then it is how it is, right? Thank you so much for joining in, and I shall see you next week. Take care. Bye.